Good morning. Happy Friday. Oh, it's Cup of Joe time. Happy Friday. Let's get into the news. I'm going to be listening to Keith Olbermann. He can be a funny guy sometimes. Let's see what who's he's tortured.
Trump just attempted another coup and failed for now. Trump just made his second attempt to overthrow the duly elected government of the United States. The second overt attempt, as opposed to the continuing background noise baseline coup attempt that he is always trying. This second overt attempt has failed for now. Trump with the U.S. attorney in charge of boxed wine, Jeanine Pirro, and with the slimy little porn monitor, Speaker Mike Johnson, squeaking from the sidelines, attempted to indict 4 sitting Democratic members of the House and 4 sitting senators for following the law, for telling other Americans to follow the law, for publicly expressing fealty to the Constitution, and for publicly reminding members of the military that their allegiance is to the Constitution and the law, and not some rapidly deteriorating psychopathic despot who is currently tearing down every building in Washington in which somebody he didn't like lived or served or entertained or succeeded where he failed. Happily, run-of-the-mill Americans thwarted them. A grand jury said no. Run-of-the-mill Americans thwarted them this time. Happily, Trump sent the most unreliable, most comical, most embarrassing of the various ambulance-chasing would-be mob lawyers in his DOJ to sell this particular fascist one-party government bullshit to people who, even though only the government gets to present a case to a grand jury, with rare exception, knew enough about America and the Constitution to run this nitwit Pirro right out of the jury room. This time. The problem is that when they try it again, even Trump and Pirro aren't stupid enough to try it again this way. The lesson they presumably take from the rejection of their attempts to jail opposition leaders in America, to jail serving opposition leaders, each of whom is a military veteran, the lesson they presumably learned was to not bother with grand juries next time, and indictments next time, and laws next time, and constitutions next time. To take a more ice-like approach, to piss on the Fourth Amendment, the First Amendment, the separation of powers, Article 1, Section 1 of the Constitution, pissing on the entire Constitution, all
Good
at
morning,
once.
Shawanda.
The gravity of
It's
Trump's
Cup of
attempt
Joe
would blame Pirro,
hour.
but this is a woman whose life peaked when she tried to run for the Senate a quarter century ago, misplaced a page of her announcement speech, and just stood there, blankly, begging for somebody else to find the page for her. The gravity of Trump's attempt has largely been framed in terms of Pirro's failure to get any indictments, indeed, reportedly, to get any yes votes from any grand jury member on indictments that were only slightly less Hitler-esque than what Trump wrote about these 6 public servants. Seditious behavior punishable by death, he wrote, adding from a repost, hang them, George Washington would. It's not only that every Republican accusation is an admission, every Trumpian accusation is a confession to his own treachery, his own crimes, his own constant attempt to end our form of government and replace it with a dictatorship, his own or one ruled by his under Reichsmarschalls, or those in the military for whom the words of Senators Kelly and Slotkin and Representatives Crow, DeLuzio, Goodlander, and Houlihan are among the only things preventing them from having already led or supported a military-enforced, murder-driven authoritarian state. Exactly the kind of murder-driven authoritarian state we have seen demonstrated and auditioned on the streets of Minneapolis and other American cities already. The targets today are immigrants and those who defend them. The targets tomorrow are Mark Kelly and Alyssa Slotkin and the Congresspeople and Comey and Tish James and Jerome Powell and whoever this petty, vengeful, empty-brained witch Gabbard is going to try to use the illegally seized 2020 votes against. The targets the day after that are you and me. You have been warned. Because of the headline nature of our world and this dynamic, an ordinary grand jury saved the entire future of our nation, much the way ordinary grand juries saved the entire future of our nation during Nixon and Watergate. That's correct, but it kind of buries the lead. That Tuesday and yesterday and tomorrow was a coup attempt. Another overt Trump attempt to change our nation from a free in name and occasionally free in reality hybrid of capitalism and socialism and democracy and racism and bullying into Chile 1973 or something. The grand jury is nice. The grand jury should get statues built to it. But as I said, the grand jury is almost luck. Because the military, led by yet another boxed wine lunatic whose IQ is smaller than his hat size, and the Republican majority in the House, led by a strange man who acts exactly as one would if one owned a home and also owned a second secret home made up of nothing but closets for skeletons.
Good morning.
They are still pushing to deport, arrest, or shoot in the face those who would criticize Trump and his many layers of thugs in his many-layered rogue administration. And the speaker is still insisting that a president, any president, should be able to reach into the chamber whose constitutional rights he, the speaker, is supposed to defend with his life and pull out sitting members, no matter their political affiliations, and put them behind bars because they have displeased the speaker's slave master.
Mr. Speaker, news just broke this evening that federal prosecutors tried to indict the 6 Democrats in the disobey illegal orders video, but a grand jury in Washington rejected that. Do you believe that those 6 Democrats should be indicted?
I'm going to reserve comment on this until I review that. That's the first I've heard of it. I mean, look, I think that anytime you're obstructing law enforcement and
bullshit. Anybody obstructing shit.
Serious thing, and it probably is a crime, and yeah, they probably should be indicted.
But they were just reiterating the law that members of the military should not have to obey illegal orders.
Yeah, but I think they went further than that. I think they were suggesting that they disobey the orders, and I think that crosses the line. So it was very serious. I'm glad the due attention is being paid to it, and I hope that they straighten up their act.
Mike Johnson is not loyal to the Constitution of the United States. Jeanine Pirro is not loyal to the Constitution of the United States. It goes without saying that Donald Trump is not loyal to the Constitution of the United States. He's never read it. We should remove them. But to quote Shakespeare, that way lies madness. All we can do now is hamstring them, box them in via the midterms. And if that is the case, then we must at all costs. And to that point, there is the seizure of the 2020 votes in Georgia and the evidence that Trump's minions lied to a judge to obtain the legal means to steal them. I have suggested before that the involvement of this loose-brained buffoon Gabbard, the worst advertisement ever for the office of the Director of National Intelligence, her involvement suggests some ass clown refabrication of the 2020 Cleta Miller or Cleta Mitchell or Cleta whatever her name was, and that idiot Powell woman, and their claims that were at the heart of Trump's first coup attempt when Venezuelan computers caused Italian satellites to change Cleta Mitchell's name and to change Trump votes into, I don't know, artichoke hearts. Go with artichoke hearts. The Italian satellites and Nicolas Maduro turned Trump votes into artichoke hearts. I'm so tired. As we've seen, it doesn't have to make sense. It just has to have the stamp of a corrupt and immoral gangster government. They might as well reference artichoke hearts. And that's what Tulsi Gabbard works for. A corrupt, immoral gangster government that might as well be dealing in artichoke hearts. And that's what Janine Pirro works for. That's what Mike Johnson works for. And that's what Donald Trump is. And I don't even want to get into what that 10-day lockdown of the El Paso airport that turned into a 10-hour lockdown was about. Drones at a military, they declared this a national defense airspace. They did that, not me. These venomous felons are just incompetent enough for the likeliest explanation to always remain coincidence, or it has something to do with Camp East Montana, the ICE concentration camp outside El Paso, or somebody in the Trump gang just watched the Kirk Douglas, Burt Lancaster coup 1964 film, 7 Days in May, which just happens to position a center of a military plot to overthrow the government of the United States in a secret military base under a secret national defense airspace outside El Paso. There is reason to be encouraged. At the micro level, Democrats continue to blow Republicans out of the water in deeply Trump districts in special state legislature elections. NBC polled yesterday in April 2025, only 34% of Americans strongly disapproved of Trump's dictatorial handling of immigration and the border. Only 34%. Now, 10 months later, 49% of us strongly disapprove of Trump on immigration and the border. 61% disapprove to some degree. 61. Trump is not only underwater or drowning on this, he's drowned already. He's 21 points underwater. He's 22 points underwater on strong disapproval on the border and immigration. It's over. Data for Progress polled on ICE and interference with the midterms, which is the real point of having ICE. 64% of us believe Trump will use ICE to interfere with the midterms. 56% of us want ICE thus kept away from all polling stations. The most amazing statistic, the most terrifying statistic, is that only 75% of Democrats want ICE kept away from all polling stations. If you are part of the 25%, rethink. They are out to take away your country. What else can we do besides being vigilant against the attempts to take away the country? The pro-rights, pro-democracy hero, Mark Elias, has a checklist at his site, Democracy Docket. Things there are still time for pro-democracy states to enact in their legislatures, and for pro-democracy Democratic senators who aren't under indictment to demand, or we shut the government down. See you in November. As to the first part, you better do it in your state. Mine of New York has the worst state landslide grade Democratic Party of them all. New York Democrats should win about 80% of those. With these idiots, we are lucky we get about 6% outside of New York State. Anyway, here are Elias's 3 straight legislative acts in the states. In headline form, with a quick explanation as needed. 1, ban third-party voter challenges and other forms of vigilantism. In other words, states need to pass laws today.
Happy Friday, y'all. Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is Cup of Joe, listening news hour with Cooking with JW. Oh, and this Cup of Joe is really, really good, y'all. It's good this morning. God is good this morning. God is good all the time. Thank you all for coming in. Please leave a like on your way in or before you leave out. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
that prevent challenges by representatives of the federal government to the voting rolls and individual voters. Well, I'm from the Trump administration and I have, get out, you're banned from this facility by state law. Take them away, Sergeant. Sergeant, take her down and book her. Sergeant, take her down. Sergeant Booker. Number 2, provide criminal and civil remedies for voter intimidation. In other words, strip individuals who actually are doing that intimidation of the voters. Strip them for this November of any protections from being prosecuted by the states or being sued by the victims of their intimidation. You want to try to throw the election at Trump? Boy, oh boy, it better work and better work perfectly. Otherwise, you are going to jail or you are going bankrupt or both. And 3, revise and strengthen election certification laws. Go through each one of these, boys. Go into your state legislatures and go by line all of the voting regulations and tighten up anything that isn't tight enough. At least secure the blue states and the ones in which Democrats still have influence in the legislatures and the House. Mark Elias also has 4 ideas that fall directly into this ICE funding debate, the government funding issue, what Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, God help us, are still dealing with right now. Rather than trying to improve on what Mr. Elias has written, I'm going to presume on his dedication to the cause and just steal, quote, 288 of his succinct, clear words. Quote, Mark Elias. With Congress now negotiating funding priorities for the coming year, I offer the following 4 suggestions for new federal laws. 1, prohibit federal law enforcement or the Department of Justice from operating within 500 feet of any polling place, counting location, or election office. Federal law enforcement must be barred from engaging in any legal or law enforcement activity near anyone casting a ballot, administering an election, or counting or certifying votes. As an aside, this goes back to the polling that I just read to you. The 61% of us who believe, excuse me, it's higher than that, 65% of us who believe that ICE is going to try to interfere at the polling places this November. 2, writes Mark Elias, prohibit federal officials from taking investigative steps involving elections from 30 days before Election Day until 1 week after the last member of the new Congress is seated. For years, the DOJ has maintained a policy against making public criminal investigations involving candidates or voting in the run-up to Election Day. That policy is insufficient, writes Mr. Elias. Congress should codify a ban on any investigative steps, public or private, during this period. 3, require that any criminal grand jury subpoena, arrest, or search warrant involving elections be sought by the Senate-confirmed U.S. Attorney for the district where the activity occurs. Donald Trump has attempted to circumvent U.S. attorney offices to pursue political investigations and prosecutions. For example, the search warrant in Fulton County was sought by the U.S. attorney in Missouri, not by federal prosecutors in Georgia. Congress should prohibit this. Only the Senate-confirmed U.S. attorney for the relevant district should be authorized to seek such actions. If no U.S. attorney has been confirmed, approval should be required from the longest-serving federal prosecutor in that office. This is one to watch, I might add. They are doing this now. It is all centered on Missouri. They have a lunatic there, a Stephen Miller level crazy there. 4, remove immunity from federal, state, and local officials for any action that interferes with or denies a qualified voter the right to vote or to have their ballot counted. Yes? Officials who disenfranchise voters should not be able to hide behind official immunity. Allowing lawsuits against election deniers for voter suppression or vote denial would create a powerful deterrent against such conduct. And I would add, if you do not think that is true, ask Rudy Giuliani. Mark Elias at Democracy Docket. And all of those last 4 steps can be folded right now, Chuck Schumer, into what you are doing. You have the hammer and you have a full array of weapons to use against the Republicans. They have no way out without your support for a continuing resolution, long-term or short-term. Give them nothing, because the alternative is for them to take everything. It is clear that the incapacitating illness afflicting the President of the United States has progressed to the point that he is having full-on, full-scale, full-fiction hallucinations. Not only his regular hallucinations, where he thinks something should have happened or is true, so he cuts out that noisome middleman reality and just announces that it has happened or is true. I mean something far, far worse. Donald Trump has now begun to literally see and hear things. This stuff with the new Canadian bridge seems trivial. Then it turns out the owner of the rival bridge, the Ambassador Bridge, called up Howard Lutnick, the guy who lied about how well he knew Epstein. Well, one of the guys who did that, who's in this administration. And apparently he asked Lutnick to get Trump to trash and threaten the people who own the new bridge. And of course, Trump did that. The Lutnick stuff is just standard Trump corruption, who knows, probably graft. What is far more disturbing, far more important that people are recognizing is that this involved Trump hallucinating. Trump put out a tweet, not an exaggeration, not wishful thinking, not lying, not a big, strong man crying story, not an everybody knows announcement. This is the son of a bitch president of the United States thinks something that didn't happen has actually happened. This is about the new Gordie Howe Bridge and Trump's attempt to renege on our deal with Canada over it. Since they built it and it's entirely in their country and Michigan owns part of it anyway, and Trump agreed to all this 9 years ago, it's just standard Trump business practice, standard Trump crooked businessman, so sue me stuff. But then comes the terrifying part, which at first sounds so meaningless as to make Trump sound almost zany. Quote, Prime Minister Carney wants to make a deal with China which will eat Canada alive. The first thing China will do is terminate all ice hockey being played in Canada and permanently eliminate the Stanley Cup. How would they do that, Grandpa Simpson? Canada will make a deal with China, and first off, what does a deal with China have to do with the American bridge? What does a deal with China have to do with hockey? What does Trump think he's talking about, which he prioritized in his post ahead of the subject of Canadian tariffs and ahead of his demand that they give him half the value of the bridge? More important to him than that, the first thing China will do is terminate all ice hockey being played in Canada and permanently eliminate the Stanley Cup. Sure. Wherever you are and whatever you do, if you said this exact delusional, irrelevant hallucination, they would either send you to the nearest medical office, or if nobody found anything wrong, their trust in you would still go off a cliff. We have to back out of this business deal with a Canadian company, boss, because if we don't, the Chinese will ban hockey in Canada and eliminate the Stanley Cup. So, who told you this, Fred? Did the late Larry Kwong of the 1947-48 New York Rangers come to you in a dream and tell you this?
Of course.
Holy crap. The problem behind the problem is you can almost trace the mental and brain trauma path that formed the chain that led to this Trumpian hallucination. Trump has no idea what Canada is like. He is incapable of empathy or imagination or even processing that other people have lives as complex or meaningful as his own. To Trump, everybody is a cardboard cutout. All members of a given group are identical. Words can only have one meaning. Thus, asylum means mental institution, and it cannot mean anything except mental institution. Countries and people must be pigeonholed as quickly as possible. What's Canada mean? He asks himself. Oh, Canada is that drunk Gretzky. He likes me. The only thing that registers with me is whether or not somebody likes me. Now, what does Gretzky do again? Oh, yeah, ice something. Ice hockey. Hey, wait, the Gordie Howe Bridge. Gordie Howe, that also means ice hockey. So when the Chinese, what is China again? Oh, yeah, China. Brutal businessmen. So they, brutal Chinese businessmen, have threatened Canada. Canada is Wayne Gretzky and Gordie Howe, and Gretzky and Howe mean hockey. Therefore, how would China hurt Canada? Oh, I remember now. The first thing China will do is terminate all ice hockey being played in Canada and permanently eliminate the Stanley Cup. This is just my opinion of how this hallucination formed in Trump's mind based on knowing him for 42 years, but I'm right. And he believes his stuff about China threatening to eliminate the Stanley Cup. He believes by now that it really happened. If he thought it, therefore it could have happened. And if it could have happened and he's put it out in public, therefore it has to have happened because he's never made a mistake. And that's why the rest of us in this world are effed. He is now actually hallucinating, and they're not even good hallucinations. Now, the gentlest interpretation of the hallucination is not quite as gentle as I may have just implied. It may be that Trump had to think of something China could do to damage Canada, and he consciously and knowingly chose one, made one up, the least possible, least sane idea. In other words, the first one he had, China destroying the Stanley Cup. Of course.
Wishful thinking.
For him to, as I say, cut out the middleman and go straight from what he wants to be true to saying it is true, it used to mean that something had actually kind of happened. The details, the explanations, these he makes up. Now, we're going to something far worse. Stanley Cup, China destroyed hockey. This is the pure figment of his imagination. And so a Canadian bridge means a deal with China, means the Chinese, means they're coming to destroy hockey, or as he calls it, like it's still 1956, ice hockey. Oh, I thought you meant field hockey. Now, the other more used to Trump hallucinations, the ones where it actually happened, but he lies about it and convincingly and endlessly and self-contradictingly, because part of his mental illness is his ability to believe any lie. He says, don't worry, he's still doing them too. Tuesday, he explained he was going to raise tariffs 30% on Switzerland, but the Swiss prime minister was rude to him on the phone, so he raised the tariff 39% on her. Of course, Switzerland doesn't have a prime minister. It has a federation president. And the last woman to be federation president left the job last year, so...
Who was he talking to?
He was talking to, but some woman somewhere had her tariffs raised 39%. Maybe it was Ghislaine Maxwell. Last week, it leaks that Trump will stop sabotaging a new bridge, 504 East Coast Rail Service, provided Chuck Schumer supports naming Penn Station in New York after Trump and Dulles Airport outside D.C. after Trump. And they asked Trump about this, and his entire answer is, Schumer suggested it. So that the first time reporters get the chance to ask Trump's in-house professional liar, Caroline Levitt, about it, she blows the whole scam because she's not only an evil, corrupt, condescending, bloated humanoid, but she's dumb as a rock. Why not? Levitt smears. It was something the president floated with Chuck Schumer. Well, you just called your boss a liar. Good luck at the next meeting. Still, could have been worse. She could have insisted the Prime Minister of Switzerland floated it.
Mhm.
You know, the Prime Minister of Switzerland.
No Prime
Prime
Minister.
Minister Gordie Howe.
Oh my God.
You run the show.
Oh, hello, good people. Your cup of Joe was amazing this Good Friday morning. I hope everyone's day goes nice and blessed and good and sweet and adventurous. Yes, 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 yes. And so, welcome to Cooking with JW's Listening News Hour. We are listening to Keith Olbermann. And he makes things funny when he's talking about that administration.
One quick Epstein note about Trump, and hallucinations for that matter. Switches it, Donnie. Did you know nothing at all about Epstein's crimes? The real ones? Or did you know enough about them to call to congratulate the then police chief of Palm Beach, Florida, 20 years ago this July, to thank him for the sex charges against Epstein and tell him everybody knew Epstein was doing that? Because you can either claim you've never known anything except that he was hiring women out of your spa at Mar-a-Lago, and this alluded you as a businessman, or you can claim you narked on him. You were a plant. You were informing on him. But you can't do both. They're mutually exclusive. And oh, by the way, while you sit there in between heaven and hell, or hell and hell, the answer to that question doesn't really matter. Because what you are doing now, Trump, is conducting a cover-up to protect Epstein's clients and co-conspirators, whoever they are. Doesn't matter anymore what there is about you or what there is conceivably clearing you in the Epstein files. It's the cover-up that's always worse than the crime. And you, sir, are the chairman of the board of the Epstein cover-up when the world has decided to bring out the pitches and pitchforks and torches and titches. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Talk about Trumpian hallucinations. Also of interest here, Megyn Kelly, Sage Steele, and Michelle Tafoya still spouting racist, xenophobic, moronic hatred over the Super Bowl halftime show. The Super Bowl halftime show, I might add, was watched by 21 Americans for every one who watched Kid Rock, the poet of underage sex. By the way, the audience for Kid Rock may have been padded by as much as 5/6. But the real point, and the real reason I'm going to mention these clowns, two of whom I once worked with, is that the language they are using against Bad Bunny and every Hispanic person in this country is virtually word for word what was used, what still is used by the sexist and racists who used to call a voicemail line we had at ESPN just to take their calls. They used to call ESPN and they used to say the exact same things to try to get the company to fire Sage Steele and Michelle Tafoya. That's next. This is Countdown. This is Countdown with Keith Olbermann. So ahead on this edition of Countdown, the start of baseball spring training has gradually slid back earlier and earlier and earlier, and sooner rather than later it'll be on New Year's Eve. And they always apply the fake scarcity rule to make this seem normal. You're only going to sell 200 of your product, whatever it is. Tell the customers there are only 150 of them, and they are limited to one per purchase. You want to make people more interested in what is essentially the least interesting part of a very, 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 very long and often uninteresting year in your sport? Tell them this isn't spring training yet. These guys showing it this week in Florida and Arizona, they've reported early because they can't wait to get started. Trust me, nobody in baseball is unable to get started or unable to wait to get started for the 2 full months of practice. 2 months. 2 months. Still, once upon a time when it was closer to 5 weeks, there was excitement in spring training. It was the dawn of the new spring and then the summer rather than, oh, the season will start in only why, the same distance from November 1st to New Year's. In a moment, I will try to take you back in time, because the series of baseball previews I did on the radio in 1978, with interviews and sound bites and ballpark noises from spring training in Florida, I still have the tape. Coming up next in Things I Promise Not to Tell. First, believe it or not, there's still more new idiots to talk about the roundup of the miscreants, morons, and Dunning-Kruger effect specimens who constitute today's other worst persons in the world. Bronze, worse. Fitting for the Olympics, the bronze medalist, Sturla Holm Lageryd of Norway. Heard about him? Third place finisher in the men's 20-kilometer biathlon. That's cross-country skiing with just a little frisson of target shooting in the middle of your cross-country ski race. Oh, look at the Nordic tranquility of, my God, he's got a gun! And with Norway finishing first and third in this race, their medalists went live on Norwegian television, not for quick interviews either. Gold medalist Johan Olav Botten spoke, and then sometime later, Mr. Lageryd spoke, and Mr. Lageryd confessed to being unfaithful to the woman of his dreams. Quote, there is something I want to share with someone who may not be watching today. Cut him off now. Trust me, I've been in television since 1981. Half a year ago, I met the love of my life, world's most beautiful and nicest person. 3 months ago, I made the mistake of my life and cheated on her. And I told her about that a week ago. This has been the worst week of my life. I have the gold medal in life, and I am sure there are many people who will see things differently, but I only have eyes for her. Sport has come second these last few days. Yes, I wish I could share this with her. One factual correction. You finished with the bronze, so sport has come third these last few days. Now, it's not her fault, but honestly, madam, your first hint should have been your realization that you were going out with a guy whose sport requires him to carry a gun and shoot it off on a cross-country ski course. Still, the Norwegian public lucked out here. All we get in America is like the 40th consecutive year with a Lindsey Vonn injury story. And instead, they get Sturla Holm Lageryd turning the Olympic broadcast into Love Connection. For runners up, a tie, 3 of the dumbest people in media, 2 of whom I used to work with, God help me. And this is the stuff that is still left over when dumb, racist, hateful people collide with something like Bad Bunny at the Super Bowl halftime show. The 3, Michelle Tafoya, Megyn Kelly, and Seiji Steele. You know Megyn. Megyn is Mook's painting the screen come to life. Bad Bunny so freaked her out that she dropped any pretense that she's not a racist, doing a segment with Piers Morgan. Now there's a duo. And screaming at him, football is ours! And I flash back to the time on Fox News when she devoted an entire segment to a topic that allowed her to scream something slightly different. Santa Claus is white! A troubled woman. But we have to keep her on the air because if we don't, that will leave only Carrie Lake to support the camera filter business. An
Mm.
entire industry could go under. Then there's Michelle Tafoya, who somehow got fired as a football sideline reporter twice, and then started her campaign for senator in Minnesota by explaining in a commercial that she's ready to lead because she asked questions of coaches at halftime as a sideline reporter, and all the I didn't quite get the idea here, but the through line seems to be that all that leadership rubbed off on her during those 90-second interviews. As Bad Bunny began during the Super Bowl, she tweeted, "During halftime tonight, I'm going to do something I've never done before, fold laundry," unquote. Needless to say, everybody but Michelle Tafoya was smart enough to say, "What? You've never folded laundry before?" Because minutes later, she tweeted again with annoyance, "I'm going to restructure my sentence. Tonight, I'm going to do something I've never done during a Super Bowl halftime before, fold laundry." How does somebody as dumb as Michelle Tafoya not know that they are as dumb as Michelle Tafoya? No brain, no pain. And speaking of that, Seiji Steele versus Bad Bunny. Quote, "I couldn't understand a damn thing he said. It's a celebration of American football. Down in the other countries, football is soccer. This is ours. And I'm frustrated that the NFL and Jay-Z chose to do something so outside of what our demographic with American football wants. Spanish is not the first language of the U.S. This is a celebration of our country. That does not mean we are racist. This wouldn't have been on a national stage in any other country where they intentionally bring someone in who is choosing to say, I don't care about the demographic of what
Good
this
morning,
is."
Joshua.
What's kind of sad here is I used to co-anchor Sports Center with her. So when
All
I
right,
get to Victoria,
Joshua.
I'll get
Good
out
morning.
about, I don't know, 1,000 years earlier than otherwise planned. It wasn't my choice. I'm a team player. And I guess nobody ever told Sage Steele that when the voicemails on the ESPN Sports Center complaint line used to pile up during and after her shows, like the 6 o'clock Sports Center, almost all of the sexists and racists who would leave voicemails whining about her and saying stupid, racist, and sexist things were basically saying, I couldn't understand a darn thing she said. It's a celebration of American sports. This is a celebration of our country, our sports, men's sports. That does not mean we are racist or misogynistic. This wouldn't have been on a national stage in any other country where they intentionally bring someone in who's choosing to say, I don't care about the demographic of what this is. Congratulations, Seiji. You have become your own hater. But our winner, not a big name, not an important story, just a little lark, and another example of how our educational system and thus our society have crumbled pretty much since the introduction of homeschooling. Sandman0530 at Carl Egan 1. Just a rando on Twitter, but this was priceless. One of Trump's more dangerous but least confident lunatics, Ed Martin, tweeted, Ed is the guy who's this close to suing the sun for not shining when he wanted it to. Sandman0530 replied by upbraiding Ed Martin for having not freed Trump election overthrow co-conspirator Tina Peters. And Sandman gave us one of my new favorite eggcorns. Eggcorns? Eggcorns. Wrong versions of words, phrases, homonyms, the things that stupid people not only think are right, but insist are right. Eggcorns instead of acorns. Here's Sandman0530 and his eggcorn. You ready? Quote, sorry, Ed. We still see Tina Peters in prison being attacked and placed in solitaire. Oh, I love that. Placed in solitaire. For all intents and purposes, that pastor's mustard in this dog-eat-dog world so full of self-refilling prophecies that you must always be poised to use the Heimlich remover. Sandman0530, oh no, she's been placed in solitaire. You know, if you forced to spend too much time in solitaire, you'll wind up playing with less than a full deck. Today's worst person in the world! much until I left Los Angeles local news for ESPN in 1992, I tried to record every broadcast I did. Radio, television. Well, it was just radio and television. I was going to say something else, but it was just radio and television in 1992. I was often mocked for this because there was an element of ego to it. Although, really, I needed to see if I was getting any better or worse. And I had a vague sense of, if I don't record these, who will? The end result, everybody now wants to hear my tapes and see my videos. And if I did it, I got it on tape somewhere, including whenever baseball spring training opens, this pretty good series I did, the Spring Training Journal, mostly my own interviews. I did it for WVBR FM at Cordell in Ithaca, New York, just before the start of the baseball season of 1978. 1978.
And now, part one of the report on spring training. Via the magic of tape, we take you to a place where it is warm and sunny, Miami Stadium. Baseball people approach spring training from very different angles. Yankee manager Billy Martin has described it as a waste of time, an opinion that holds little weight with one of Martin's chief rivals, Earl Weaver of Baltimore.
I've been doing a lot of experimenting, playing people in different positions so that when you get north, if for some reason you have to get more offensive people in the lineup, that I can maybe switch an Eddie Murray from first to third base, which enables me to get Lee at first, move a hitter into the designated spot and different things. And you use spring training for that purpose, and sometimes you don't want a lot of games to do with it, but at least you're finding things out.
Not winning a lot of games is not necessarily a bad thing, however. In fact, too much success in spring training is feared by many, including Philadelphia's Danny Ozark. His club started slowly last year, and Ozark blames it on a hot spring training.
I think we were like 18-6 or something like that in spring, and now the season starts, and it seems like everybody.
All right, Keith Olbermann. He's a funny guy. Okay, my good people, thank you all for coming in. That is the end of the Cup of Joe Listening News Hour. Thank you all for coming in. Please, as you enter or exit, please leave a like. It helps my videos get out there. Helps a lot. And I hope everyone's day is blessed. Thank you. Bye-bye.